Hello and welcome to Dojo Live this Wednesday, February 21st, 2024. My name is Kim Lantis and it's my pleasure to be hosting today along with my partner in crime, America Guerrero.
Hey Kim, hey Rana.
Hey, and of course, the guest of honor, the most important person of today's show is Rana Saad, who is the founder and CEO of Tuzmo. Rana, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm looking forward to today's conversation because we're talking about, of course, technology. It is Dojo Live after all, but how technology is being able to connect travelers and tourists with authentic local artisans. I really love this. And we'll deep dive also into just the cultural impact of that, what that experience is like working with artisan workshops and more. But before we dive into the conversation too much, Rana, we would like to get to know you a bit. What's your story, your passion, and what kind of led up to the founding of Tuzmo?
Absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity. And so my story is basically the story of most Americans, with some mix of some cultural background, with a journey. I came here as a student from Pakistan, but I've been here, a lot of recent years, and I have, I'm an engineer by education, and throughout my career, I kind of have a mix of entrepreneurship, consulting for the big tech firms, and and just exploring the world while doing that. So it's that combination that nurtured a desire to build something like Tuzmo. So just very quick summary of my background. I have worked for one of the recent consulting engagements was, I guess, with Accenture, where I led the North America digital innovation team. And after that, I was at the White House for a year as a presidential innovation fellow. And
Wow.
have consulted with some of the biggest names in technology, including IBM and Northrop Grumman, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and stuff like that. So that sort of, not only taught me, sort of the technology and the sort of how the world works, but also took me around the world as a consultant, and that exposed me to world cultures, languages, traditions, heritage, and stuff like that. In addition to that, I also started a couple of global companies. One of them, based in 4 countries around the world with 400 employees, was ultimately listed on stock exchange in Copenhagen. Wow. So that's one of my prior entrepreneurial experiences. It was a services company, wasn't a product company, but was still in technology, on Microsoft technologies, building, helping customers around the world. So I have that mix, and it's a mix of technology and exposure to different cultures and travel and observing the convergence of travel and technology that led me to the idea of Tuzmo, which I'll tell you more about.
Yep. Yeah, I'm curious if you've kept a count. What is your country count then that you've visited?
Funny you asked. Last I looked at it was 97.
And how many countries are there in the world?
I think there are about 200, depending on how you count.
Like half. I was going to say like 200 or 300,
so
right?
I'm halfway there, and this count will go up very significantly over the next couple of years as we expand Tuzmo.
Oh my goodness, Rana, you are truly living the dream. I love it. So let's dive into Tuzmo. This inspiration. Who is Tuzmo? What's your company all about? The problem that you're helping solve?
Sure. So if you look at the world of travel, travel is changing. Up until a few years back, everybody's idea of travel was to go places and then visit beaches and museums and maybe the standard touristy stuff. That still is true, but people want more out of their travel, right? I mean, when you go somewhere, you want to make a local connection. You want to connect with the local culture and heritage. I'll give you a very small example of that. When we all travel, we all want to bring back something, a nice souvenir, which represents the local culture. That's how it started. That's how I started imagining what is missing in the travel world. When I was traveling, this is before COVID, I was traveling for work, and I was noticing that out of all the major activities in the tourist world, if you look at it, or travel world, most have been disrupted by technology. If you look at how we book travel, how we stay in hotels, book
Absolutely.
flights, how we hail rides in a local when we get there, how we find restaurants and think all of those will have been disrupted. But how we buy souvenirs or the local artifacts hasn't changed. We still depend on whatever vendor we run into in the street, or whatever the
Or
hotel
the last
concierge.
minute panic purchase at the
Yeah,
airport.
last minute panic, or buying for the airport or the hotel. Those shops, at 10 times the price, and not even knowing if those are authentic or not, right? Not even knowing. I mean, if a lot of times you flip it back and look at the bag, it says made in China. No offense, I mean, China makes some great products, but not the local products that are meant to be from that place. So that all of that background led me to believe that there is a demand out there for a solution that helps tourists and travelers find authentic local artisans in a destination when they get there. That is the mission of Tuzmo, that the world has millions, and I'm not exaggerating, millions of very talented artisans, which are very authentic. They're local. They are, sort of embedded in local culture. For generations, they've been doing this, and they have some of the best representation of local art and heritage, local history and heritage. And what would be better than helping them connect with the travelers and tourists who are always looking for them, but there's no platform which does that. So that's in a
Mhm.
nutshell. It's a long nutshell. It's a big nutshell, but that's in a nutshell what Tuzmo is out there to do.
I love it.
Based on what you're sharing, so I understand that this is a B2C, business to consumer, and your users, yes, they are the tourists, but out
Mhm,
there you are also looking for the artisans, and they are the ones that you partner with, right?
mhm, mhm.
How is
Absolutely.
that? How does that work? How do you find them?
Sure. So, two answers to that. One is we are not purely B2C. We are actually working on our B2B model right now. And we are presenting in the Forbes Travel Guides Summit next week to the world of hotels, luxury lodging. And it is our B2B model that we are presenting there. We are providing a great platform for hotels, especially luxury hotels, to really enhance the experience of their hotel guests by making a connection with local culture through our platform. There we are providing a B2B channel for our hotel partners to really elevate the experience of their guests and change their stays basically. But having said that, on the B2C side, to answer your question, yes, a big part of what we offer is the artisans, the curated artisans. We spend a lot of time in finding the artisans, the best artisans around the world, and putting them, and not only creating their profiles, but creating their rich profiles. So we are asking them to tell their story in their own words, right? So we are not sort of manufacturing anything in this process. We are asking them in their own language, in their own style and cadence, to tell the world what's best about their art and craft, right? And a lot of them love doing that. They're storytellers. They are by nature, artists and artisans are excellent storytellers. Sometimes they tell the story with their hands, but a lot of times they like to tell the world to know what's special about their craft, right? Which is, they've been doing it for centuries. They learned it from, we typically ask them to elaborate on things like this. Where did they learn it? How long does it take them to create one artifact? What sort of materials they use? How is that material connected to local communities? And what's special, if there's any message in their craft to the world, and things like that. A lot of times we discover that it's the visual part of the craft is only the starting point. What's behind that, the story behind that, is the real interesting one. And that's what we encourage our tourists and travelers to bring back, not just the artifact, but what that's the whole story behind it. And that's what our platform is very special about. Now, having
Mhm.
how do we find them? The second part of your question, or how do we partner with them? The answer is actually uh, the answer is it's not that simple, but at the same time, I think we've gotten, that's where we have the most traction. So since we started just before COVID, and I'll get into our history as a company, but when we started, then the COVID hit, so that gave us about a year and a half to really contemplate our future business model and think about what works, what doesn't work. So we use that time to create a lot of linkages with a lot of tourism boards and tourism ministries around the world. So a lot of them know Tuzmo by by its name, and we can now actually tap on a lot of these connections that we built. Through them, we are reaching the most, I guess, some of the even the remote parts of many countries, to find real authentic artisans. And that's why the whole emphasis is on authentic local artisans. I mean, you can find sort of the run-of-the-mill factory type situations in a lot of cities where people are reproducing the same item, but we are not talking about them. We are talking about handmade, authentic local cultural items which are embedded in local history and heritage. That's what we're
Mhm. I love it. I wanted to get back. I think in a few minutes, I want to touch on the technology side, of course, of what this looks like, what the
Mhm,
Tuzmo experience is.
mhm,
Um,
mhm,
but before we do that, I still want to dig a bit deeper into the heart behind this, because I really like a couple of things that you mentioned, and tapping into the cultural experience, right? It's reminding me of a show we had a couple weeks back, with a
Mount.
friend, Kauslerich, I think, with Turnio, right? And
Oh yeah.
that's all about how they're able to help make hotels make
mhm,
local experiences part of the booking, and things like
mhm,
that.
mhm,
And it's the experience side. You got me talking about the local artisans, these not just what they're producing, but the art itself. And one of the bells that was ringing in my head is I recall a woman, uh, I want to say maybe 100+ years old, who's one of the only people who's still tattooing, I think, in a traditional way. I want to say in the
mhm,
Philippines. I might be
mhm,
mistaken. And that's the kind of inspiration that I'm diving in. And so
mhm,
with the heart, it makes me think that, one, we're going to lower this disparity, right, of
mhm,
artisans actually getting the renown and even the economic compensation that they deserve, but
mhm.
perhaps even igniting, rekindling this interest, not just among tourists, but the youth of said cultures, so that we're not losing these types
Absolutely.
of art. Can we talk a bit more to the heart maybe behind this, and
I
what
think
else
you
matters?
you yeah, I think you said it beautifully. I think it's not just about showcasing the current artisans. It's about preserving the arts and crafts, which to me are the best representation of culture and a heritage, right? I mean, if you look at, and when we say artisans, actually it's a very wide term, right? It not only includes people who produce handmade crafts, but also artisans of artisan chefs. You've heard the term, right? Described for people who are doing these very traditional food, food and beverages. There are also artisan artisan musicians, right? They're artisan dance executioners, and so you can extend the definition to a lot of different areas of art, right? So any to me, the way we use the term, it includes any cultural, and traditional the practitioners of those are artisans. So the to answer your question, preserving the local culture and heritage is a big part of it. And I am not saying this in a self-serving way, but a lot of these artisans and crafts are losing their livelihoods. Were losing their livelihoods because they had no exposure to the world. The world has moved on. A lot of them are not connected, in any way with the wider world. Some of them have Facebook, some of them have Instagram, but that's a very small minority. I mean, I would take a guess, I think they're not more than 10% of the artisans around the world. I mean, in Western world, I think I'm sure in US and Europe, the ratio may be different, but we are talking about artisans of the world. If you look at that community, I think we are talking about less than 10% who are connected. The rest of them, even if you Google them, you will not find them, right? These are not discoverable in the traditional way. So that's the gap we are trying to fill, is to make them visible. So that's one, give them visibility to the global market, to the global audience, them to be able to tell their story and then be able to do transactions with the world at a scale which would not be possible otherwise. So that's one part of the mission. But the second part that you alluded to is even as important, right? Which is to preserve the craft and their skill and pass it on to the next generations. That is only possible when they see the previous generation's crafts and artisanship being sort of appreciated around the world, being visible around the world,
and profitable, right? Like
yeah,
you
and
got to.
profitable. At the end of the day, it has to be a part of an economic system. If you look at the creator economy in other areas, like what Etsy is doing, for example, and I'll come to that later in our discussion, how we're different from a platform like Etsy or something like that. But what I'm saying is they also made it possible. Amazon did it. Platform like freelancing platforms like Fiverr and others, they made possible for a lot of people who had skill but had no way of selling to the world. They made that bridge. The same bridge did not exist for artisans, and that's what Tuzmo is doing.
I
So
love
we are
it.
creating the bridge. And by the way, it's not a small market. If you look at the numbers, and now I'm going to throw some big numbers at you. The total size of what tourists spend on buying local things is about $90 billion right now, worldwide. So when tourists go somewhere, the amount of spend on buying local is $90 billion. These
Wow.
are WTTC numbers. And then this goes up to, about in 2028, this number will be up to $150 billion, right? And this is not just the end of it. The total size of the handicraft market, which includes local consumption as well as exports, which do not fall under tourists buying those, that is $650 billion, is what the handmade craft total market size is, including what sells in supermarket, showrooms and stores here in the US or Europe. So if we go to Home Goods, a store like Home Goods, we are buying a lot of handmade items there. If you total them all up, it's a $650 billion economy worldwide.
Right.
And guess how much of that ends up in the hands of the people who are making it?
Very
Not less
little.
than very little, not more than 15%. If they're lucky, because there are so many layers to export and to wholesale, and then selling it in export market, import taxes, duties, and things like that. And that is growing to 1.5 trillion by 2030. So these are crazy numbers. So what we are trying to do in a very humble way is to try to shift that equation in the favor of artisans, people who make those crafts, right? So out of that 650 billion worldwide, artisans should get at least half of that, if not more, right? And even if we are able to do a fraction of that work, I think we would make many artisans a lot better than where they are today.
Absolutely. And I think the timing of what you're doing, Rana, is very good, because we also on Dojo Live recently, we had a show just about discoveries of the Gen Z, what's important to them. And I think these now travelers and people who are out there spending money are more inclined to be about the experience side versus, the luxury side that we spoke about a bit earlier on the show. And also, I think it's a generation of people who are more in tune with things like democratization and equality, representation. And so it's a really great tool, I think, especially for this generation. But how does it work? Let's dive into the technology behind Tuzmo. How is it different than something like Etsy? What can we?
Sure. So the way it works is at a very basic level in technical terms, it's a two-sided marketplace. It's both an Android app and iOS app as well as a web app, right? So you can access it from the web or from Apple Store or from Android's store, right? And it is it works somewhat like, let's say, Airbnb, where you go in and you specify which destination you're going to, and you specify maybe some of your interests. For example, you're interested in ceramics, you're interested in maybe you want to narrow it down by price or
Textile.
something, yeah, the style.
Mhm.
And then it or maybe the price range or something, and it gives you the crafts. That's how we started. Now we are shifting a little bit towards making it about experience. So instead of looking for a craft to buy online, we are changing it to we are connecting, we are shortlisting the artisans who match your interest, and you basically book an experience with them through our platform. And when you go there, you can decide to buy or not buy, whatever. I mean, so you're just paying for an experience to go and meet an artisan and spend some time with them. You can decide to do a workshop with them or just watch them do their craft, right?
Which is a whole nother revenue source for the artisan
Yeah,
itself. Like,
yeah,
not just
exactly.
selling my finished good, but
Yeah,
I can get money for the time I was going to spend making that good anyway.
yeah. They need the exposure. Once the tourist is there, once the foot falls there, I think that solves 90% of their problem. A lot of them make great crafts. It's not that they are not. I mean, they're excellent at what they do. What they lack is the exposure, right? And that's what we are bringing to them. It
And
may start out as a trickle, but that idea is to build it over time.
and then maybe even also a job source. Sorry if I'm
No,
sidetracking
no,
here, but I
no.
visualize maybe even the need for translators. And again, this younger generation of who wants to fall in love with this art to
Yep,
help communicate, to help, creating jobs for translators and tour guides and different
yep.
things, not just the art itself.
100%. We already have the translator option in our platform. So we anticipate a lot of places to with artisans not being able to speak English or Spanish or the major languages. So we do provide the option of adding as an add-on a local translator, which we provide. We have again a team. We are trying to, wherever we go live, we not only have our representatives in those destinations, which are like our ambassadors, if you like, and then we also hire or have a short list of translators or quote unquote guides who can
Mhm.
go there with them. But I think, again, to answer your other question, how do we differentiate ourselves? I think that right there is the difference between us and Etsy. For example, Etsy is for home shoppers. So if you and I are sitting here in the States and we want to buy a nice handmade item, not necessarily unique, maybe produced in bigger quantities, but we can get a nice. For example, if I want to buy a nice, I don't know, a nice Moroccan jewelry, right? I can go to Etsy, I can buy it, and it'll ship to me. And that's the end of that transaction. I won't know a lot about the artisan, although I can read a little bit about them on their profile. But that's it. There was no connection made here, right? Versus our platform, is a very different scenario, solving a very different problem. So if you're planning to go to Morocco, and let's say you're going to be in Marrakesh city and you're going to be in the Medina, in the center of the city, and before you go, you can do some research through our platform. It'll tell you exactly where the local artisans are, what the specialties are, what their stories are, and you can book a time with them. And so when you go there and you have 7 days, out of that, one day or half a day is for you to go and really experience this essence of that culture by meeting an artisan. I think that Etsy doesn't do it, Amazon doesn't do it, and other platforms which are for artisanal crafts, like 10,000 villages, and there are others, they don't provide that. We are the first platform which is making that sort of a cultural connection with local artisans.
Mhm. And it
As a
also provides a sense of security, I think. Go ahead, America.
yes, security. As a future user, I don't know if you have artisans or like partners here in Yucatan Peninsula. I live in Cancun, but something that I would like to explore is to have that local experiences, right?
Yeah.
So, do you get some recommendations? For example, if I need to drive 4 hours to get to meet that artisan, how do you do that? Do you provide those recommendations? How can you be prepared? of maybe there is not like restaurants around that place and you need
Hmm.
to take your food with you, that kind of recommendations.
No, that's a great idea. We right now we what we do is to show you on the map where the artisans are, so you can and there are curated artisans. So we have interviewed them, we have met them, we know the security of the not just the provider but also the area around them. And sometimes we do mention if there are cautions to be taken, right, precautions to be taken. But at the same time, I like the recommendation. I think we can actually add a specific section on safety, which it could be blank if it's a very safe and very safe area of the town. But if you're venturing 4 hours out out in the country, we can add some tips and maybe even recommend taking along a guide or something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's work in progress. But at this time, we do show it on the map, and we do have some high level recommendations in terms of accessibility and safety. But we will continue to enhance it.
Yeah.
Great feedback.
It is a really great idea. And another thing I was curious, you just said the word tip, and although the context, the meaning of your tip was different than the tip I'm going to refer to.
Yeah.
And this is talking about parity and prices.
Hmm.
And I know that as a tourist, we got two sides of the same coin, I think.
Hmm.
One, what we've already talked about, artisans not actually earning the quantity of money that they deserve. And then the flip side is on occasion, a tourist gets ripped off as well, right? They end up
Yeah.
overpaying on something that either isn't authentic or,
Right.
just or tipping too much. Like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, cool, I'll pay this, but I'm also going to pay you that. So is
Right.
this also something that you've incorporated in terms of
Yes.
parity, in terms of the value, what to expect, what not to expect?
Sure. So first of all, other than the fixed platform fee, which a platform like ours has to charge, the artisans get 75% of every revenue, all the revenue that we make, which is at least 5 times higher than what the artisans make from their crafts today. And we'll continue to move that number in favor of the artisans. Our mission is, and we are working on a nonprofit side of Tuzmo in the future as well, where we use a part of our revenue to educate the artisans, to digitally bring them up to speed, to give them additional tools to market. And although right now we're doing all the marketing for them, but for them to become even more sort of independent in terms of how they want to promote their businesses and stuff like that. We've partnered with organizations like Aid to Artisans, which is a wonderful organization. We've actually twice run webinars on their platform. Aid to Artisans educates and trains. It's a nonprofit around the world, and they have more than 40,000 artisans which are members of that. So we have a great relationship with them. So we'll continue to sort of bolster our partnerships with organizations like that, nonprofits, so that we can educate and empower the artisans in a true sense. Our goal is to keep shifting that equation, the economic equation, in the favor of the artisans as much as we can.
So there actually is a purchasing platform as well as the application to utilize if I want to go purchase in person. So I can
Yes,
order online and have it come to my home, or
absolutely.
I know where
Yep.
to go when I'm in Morocco.
It is both, and as well as even if when you reach the artisan and you meet them in person, you can still use the platform to make the transaction. We give you some additional benefits. For example, all our customer service, ability to return, and all that. So the platform, or maybe even as a payment platform, because a lot of artisans don't have credit card processing and all that. So we give all of that, so you can continue to use the platform both before
Or the
before
shipping
going,
of it. How do I
or
get
the
this
shipping of it.
vase
Yeah,
home
yeah,
because I can't put it in my suitcase? Wow.
yeah. You can do that. Yes, absolutely.
That's amazing. There are also occasions that you're having this experience with this artisan, and you never know when you're going back to that place. So you want to
Yeah,
take everything with you, but then there is an option that maybe during the year you can buy this for your mom, for example.
yep,
And
That's amazing.
it still feels authentic. Right?
yep.
Like even if I wasn't able to bring all 16 home, I still lived it. I was still there.
Yeah.
Sorry,
And
frog in my throat.
we think that the best part is of authenticity is not only you brought the artifact back, the artist, the craft back, but also the experience. You know, the selfie or the picture you took with the artisan, the conversation you had with them, and the pictures you took of them making the craft or showing you how it is made. Is becomes a conversation piece for you for the rest of your life, you know. And when your friends and family see this piece in your living room, they say, "Oh, this looks beautiful." You have a story to tell. You tell, "Oh, I went to
Yeah.
this artisans workshop in Tanzania, and you know, it was 5 miles outside in a beautiful community. We spent half an hour together, and here's some pictures from that." You know, so that's the sort of storytelling we want to get out
Oh
of
yes,
this. You know.
a true memory maker. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it.
Absolutely.
You know, Rana, I feel like we could sit here and talk with you all day long. I'm super excited, but we're actually at the end of our half
Oh.
hour today. You know, we talked a little bit about, you know, what's inspired Tuzmo, what Tuzmo is currently capable of, what you've got on your roadmap. My final question is just any words of wisdom that you might have for the audience and your vast experience, whether that be on the engineering side, the technology side, the entrepreneurial side. If you could leave them with one last tidbit, what would you share?
I think it's a non-technical tidbit, and it is that explore the world and, and and experience the true cultures of the world. You know, don't miss the opportunity when you go somewhere to experience local cultures. Whether you use our tool or not is secondary, right? When you go somewhere, never miss the opportunity to meet the locals, experience local culture, and find things that are really ingrained in local culture and heritage. That's my advice, and you will forever cherish that travel. I mean, that'll keep coming back to you, you know, and will enrich your travel by so much. You know.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. It's been a pleasure getting to know you today, to learn more about Tuzmo today, Rana. Wish you nothing but success as you move forward.
It was a true pleasure talking to you, and thanks for some wonderful questions. I really
You're,
enjoyed the experience.
you're welcome. Stick around for just a minute as we go off air. But before we do go off air, we would like to remind our audience that we do have another show this week. It's going to be happening tomorrow at 10 o'clock a.m. Pacific. That's going to be the fourth part of our 5-part collaboration with Provision Partners about how to implement AI, doing more in 24, particularly in the hospitality space. And there you've got it. This time it's about the testing and iteration, unlocking AI's full potential. So guests will be David Chesler, who is president of Provision Partners, as well as Jorge Hernandez, who is a artificial intelligence and machine learning expert with Encora. So catch us tomorrow at 10 o'clock a.m. Pacific.